Dude, the last week.
Nuts. Yeah.
We just got to take a breather, bro.
Yeah, for sure.
So what I want to do is, I mean, I want to talk about the Liver King stuff because I feel like if anyone should, it should be me and you. But I do want to dive into the process of making that video
Yeah.
because I think it's a pretty compelling and interesting story. So I guess we should just start by, like, how did I get involved in this? How did you get me involved, and what your process was on that?
Yeah, so I had this idea for a video, and my, I don't know, production quality, I guess, typically isn't what I would consider documentary-esque. And having somebody on board who understands what goes into all that, how to frame a video in that way, how to break down the segments, and just map it out in a way that was, I don't know, the most captivating. I felt like I've seen your stuff before, and it was very aligned with what I envisioned to be a good end product for something like this of this magnitude. So reached out to Zach, told him there was something pretty significant that I was trying to make, edit, etc., but I didn't think that it was something aligned with necessarily my expertise from a creative standpoint. So asked Zach if he would get involved, and he was on board, and that was
Yeah, and like I think the way that you typically make videos is kind of like record and then just go, and then maybe edit it down so that you don't
yeah.
say the same thing over again or it gets redundant. With this one, it took a substantial amount of preparation. Like, and I was actually excited to do that. I'm not actually that type of person to like lay out an outline, but like you told me about it, and I was obviously eager to jump on board, but I was mainly eager to jump on board because of my involvement with like charlatans in the past. And
Yeah. And it was also that you've done videos like specifically aligned with what the video would be about as well.
yeah,
So it was
yeah,
just like a perfect double whammy,
yeah.
essentially.
And like right away, like I think the next day I got in going on the outline and then sent that back to you, and you're like, fuck, cool, let's do this.
Yeah.
And then I wrote my part, and then there was a big break, and then like you're like, trust me, I'm gonna get to this thing. I'm like, okay, well, whatever. And then when you finally did, you had like pages and pages of shit written out, and I was like, I
Yeah.
was very impressed by that, and the amount of work that you had put in over like the course of 2 days, just writing and writing and writing and writing. I think there's something to be said about scripting things out. It's like a lot of people, when they are creators and they get into content, they can get some success without writing anything out or outlining, myself included. But after a while, once you kind of get used to writing things out, it becomes like one of the biggest advantages, I think. Do you think you're going to start doing more stuff like that going forward?
Yeah, it seems like something I would like to explore more of for sure. I don't necessarily know that it's going to be commonplace, but it's definitely something that was completely absent previously.
Yeah.
And I would definitely like to be more, I don't know, trying that kind of stuff more in the future.
I think when you and I had talked about this also with Alex, our editor, for this thing, he did an amazing job.
Yeah. Shout out to
Crazy.
Alex.
Huge shout out to Alex. But I think when you and I decided, we were going to do this thing, like we knew it was going to be big.
Yeah.
But it was also like, I think we both had the agreement that we were going to come at this with a general perspective, right? It wasn't it. Obviously, the juicy story is the leaked emails, okay? And that's where everyone wanted to go, and that's what everyone wanted to get. I feel like you could have just pressed record and just like read the emails.
Yeah.
And it would have been effective, but like this kind of puts you in a different level,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I felt it was necessary to convey like what even led to this kind of persona or the perception of what he's about and his intentions, etc. Felt necessary to do it the justice it deserved, so to speak.
Yeah. And then now, like we knew it was going to be big, but like just still to see how it exploded.
No,
Like,
it's like people who don't even know who we are talking about it.
dude, that's still like multiple times, guys. Multiple times I was at the gym uh randomly and I overheard two guys talking about Liver King and I was like, "Oh, you guys saw the Liver King video?" And they're like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, I saw the Liver King video." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I helped make that thing. I was in it." And they're like, "Wait, what thing?" I was like,
Yeah.
"The video?" They're like, "Oh, no, no, we just saw like a Barstool post about it."
Yeah.
And they're like, they had no idea. And I was like, "Do you know who Derek from More Plates, More Dates is?" And they're like, "No, I don't." I was like, "What the fuck?" So it took on a life of its own.
Yeah.
And then you and I were in the gym, and some guy mentions Liver King because it's kind of like in the cultural like speak
Mhm.
at this point. Mentions Liver King, doesn't know that you and I are like we were literally standing in front of him, and he like didn't even look up. He didn't even know that we had anything to do with it.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. Like, has there ever been another video where you have provided maybe not the source content, but like it's what you have said has gone off into like changing some sort of topic discussion?
Oh, yeah, I think a lot of the information I put out has kind of like changed the discussion around certain hormone optimization practices and stuff like that, but it never like a news context. Really, I
Yeah,
don't
like
think.
pop culture.
Like there's been articles written about some of the videos I've done here and there, or
Mhm.
when I do podcasts with Joe or Dan Bilzerian, stemmed off a lot of different articles and stuff, but like nothing like this, obviously.
Yeah. And I think like look, so many people are going to be talking about uh the actual specifics of the Liver King. So I don't want to go into that. Like if you guys haven't seen the video, watch the full thing. And then there's so much content on YouTube now, the secondary content. And one thing I will say, and you and I talked about this a lot, is the main takeaway that everyone thinks is like a smart takeaway or like funny or cunning is like if you thought that he was ever on or that he was natural, like you're an idiot, like
Yeah.
that type of take, which is obviously warranted. But those kind of people like were a lot of people were kind of just hanging in the weeds
hmm
and I guess not just like allowing that behavior to exist, but they were, or even condoning it. They were just kind of like, that's the Liver King. He's like the fun little heel, it doesn't matter too much what he does. And then when this comes out, everyone starts to freak out a little bit. And then those same people who thought that it wasn't a big deal are now saying your take or the idea that you thought he was natural is stupid, right? Or there's a lot of contrarian opinions, which kind of happens on the internet, but
Yeah, I think no matter what, some people will, not care. Some people care a lot. Some people think it was a necessary thing that he did. A lot of people think it was horrible what he did. Like everyone has their own stance on it.
yeah.
I don't know. What was your impression of the apology?
I thought, well, like Chris put it really well. That was his one chance, and I felt the same thing. It's like what I really would have liked is to have him have this tone of voice.
Oh, just like a normal human.
Yeah. Hey guys, everyone saw the news, and it is true. I was on steroids, and I currently take a TRT dose. I was over my head. Like this thing took on a life of its own, and I figured that I had to make a decision at one point. And once I made that decision, I went full boat on that decision.
Mm-hmm.
Once I decided to not talk openly about steroid use and preach my message, that was when I made the decision. So then every time after that, people ask me, I was inclined to say no. I lost myself. I wasn't prepared for this, and it all came crashing down. And there's nobody's fault but my own.
Bam.
That could have. That could have.
was pretty
right?
good.
Was that pretty compelling?
Yeah.
Like, but see that's genuine.
Yeah.
I put myself in his shoes, and in that way, like if he genuinely feels like that, and Rogan said this. We were just watching it in the break. Rogan said, like, if he feels bad, like I genuinely feel bad for him, and because I know he does. He does. We all know that he feels bad for what he did. Like, and I would never see someone like in pain and be happy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't care what they've done. That's not true. But in this circumstance, like, I do feel for him in that way. Just portray it. Just show it. Just show us that. Like, he still in his apology still had the what are some of his terms, like he like rattles off terms that kind of like rhyme with each other, like this is my fight, and I can't off the top of my head.
Yeah, I know what you mean though.
Yeah, and it was like I don't even mind if things are scripted, really.
Yeah.
You know, I don't even mind that.
I just didn't think the leaning on supporting justification was really necessary and might have taken away from the overarching genuineness of the apology itself.
I think somebody put this really well. I don't know who it was, but you know, if he was partners with Paul Saladino, and who is the carnivore MD, right? That's what he calls himself, and he was kind of like the founder of like this new wave of carnivore ideas, and he went on Dr. Phil. You actually did a video. That's how I found out about him, when he got lambasted on Dr. Phil.
Oh yeah. It wasn't Dr. Phil, it was the doctors.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
And he just had a board of people shitting on him.
Yeah.
And like kudos to him knowing he's going to get decimated.
Yeah, I thought he
and
did
still going
great.
on.
I thought he did great, and those doctors sounded just horrible.
Yeah, I think he came out on the good side of that for sure.
And, you know, I think maybe he said this. It was like, look, Brian, you're an incredibly hard worker. Your body's incredible. Like, find a way to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
And Brian's like, yeah, you know what? That is a good idea. Let me hire a team and let me get in my peak physical shape. Now, that right there was the decision where he should have known that there was going to be some form of the audience that was going to say like, hey man, like you look incredible. Or, you know, that's subjective, but you have like, you're very lean, you're very massive. Like this has to be the result of androgens. And in that moment, that's where he made that decision. Yeah.
Yeah. The foresight on that was wildly miscalculated, I guess. But it's it just feels like something that would have happened 15, 20 years ago, maybe, that it's shocking that it's happening now. This is the kind of thing you would see in like an old Muscle Tech ad or something.
Yes.
Not now.
Muscle Tech.
At scale. It's just like wild that is still happening at all.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think I want to end the Liver King discussion, man. For real. Like, you I know your sleep has been horrible. My sleep has even been horrible. And it's not just from, like, the pressure. It's just, like, wanting to check, like, oh, wow, like, BuzzFeed picked it up. Fucking some, you know, the New York Post picked it up. It's just the constant, like...
There's just an influx of news and stimuli around the situation, and it leads to, you know, people messaging you or whatever, and you just can't avoid it, obviously.
And we talked about this last night, like Rogan's ability now.
Oh, unfathomable to just not look at shit.
So this has happened to me on a somewhat of a smaller scale. When I started my YouTube channel, anyone who said anything negative, I would respond, and it would keep me up, and it'd freak me out. And the more views I got, the more comments I got, the less important they were to me. And that's not to say that commenters are important and that they don't still get to me. Mm-hmm. It's just like there's not enough of me to respond. Like I'm already making the next video. I'm already doing the next thing. This for you is a different situation. Like you've never had this. Rogan has had this dozens of times. So I feel like if this kept happening to you, you might be able to do what he does, the unfathomable.
Yeah,
like,
maybe.
You know.
Yeah, the fact that he can not only not look at the negatives, but also not look at the positives. And like compare past performance or see what the views are or even judge any metric of anything, really. It doesn't seem like he cares that much as long as he has high quality guests. He's getting good information out and he's like adhering to his ethics. That's like all that matters.
Yeah. You can't control every bit of the internet. And when things go sour, you have to hope that they're going to go your way at some point without trying to put out the fire. And I know that affects you. It affects me on a minor scale. It's just like you just have to grow past it. This is what happens when you scale content, scale your ideas, and scale yourself. More people talk about you, and that can lead to some negative things that could affect you. All right, let's move on. I want to... I'd be remiss if I didn't bring you into the world of weightlifting a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I don't know that you've ever really been involved in the world of weightlifting. And when I say weightlifting, I mean Olympic weightlifting. And there's a couple guys in particular that I want to talk to you about. Have you heard of Liu Xiaojun?
Yep.
Yeah. So he's like one of the most prevalent guys on the internet, probably him or Klokov or even Clarence Kennedy, who's not even a competitor, but he's a good friend of mine as well. So you said you've heard of Liu Xiaojun, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. He's probably one of the more famous guys, but this is what he looks like, or this is what we know Liu Xiaojun to look like.
Mm-hmm. You said this was like 10 years ago or something?
Yeah, but it's like kind of what his physique ends up looking like because he's hitting similar numbers, or he hit similar numbers in Tokyo. So you can see this is like everyone loves him. He's jacked. He's one of the most prolific weightlifters currently. And then if we look at his Instagram, comparing the back, right? A lot of people made videos about this stark difference. I mean, you can see him. He's back squatting. I don't even know what weight he's back squatting here. It's maybe not even 150 kilos. Like, look at how tiny he is. And then if we can go to like just a video of him when he was absolutely in peak shape, right? Just like jacked out of his tree. And that's a Derekism right there. So anyways, what I wanted to talk about is like, I'll give you my thesis on it. Basically, what happens to a lot of people who are like very big weightlifters is they take a ton of time off after the Olympics. They kind of get the post-Olympic blues. They take time off, and he took over a year off. Mm-hmm. Also, the pandemic in China has been pretty crazy. I've heard this from somebody who lives there, and also you can see it on the news. So training and even just like getting adequate amount of food is tough. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's not the same case for somebody with as high status as Liu Xiaojun.
Yep.
But drugs also become a factor in this.
Yep.
And so what I want to know is like, what would be your take on this? Like,
I would need to look way deeper to give like a cursory even assessment. Obviously, objectively, if some guy is losing a whole bunch of lean mass, but he's still involved enough to at least retain muscle. Like, it doesn't take that much weekly volume to retain tissue if you're natural. Like,
so, but if you're taking gear, you go off gear, and then you want to retain that muscle, it's probably a lot harder.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You can't do minimum effective.
Well, if you were just cruising on something, it's super easy to hold tissue, like way easier than a natural. You can get away with not very much of anything, realistically, as far as training volume goes. And it's tough to say, though, without knowing, the time frames, what his weight was before and after, seeing actual shots in the exact same lighting and circumstances and whatnot, seeing how his lifts have gone up and down proportionally to where his physique looks at the time of looking smaller or bigger.
So basically, like, just to show you how prolific China is, this is the men's side. These are all the world records. Mm-hmm. You can see the Chinese men's team, like really, really dominates. And then the women's team, you can see it's just China all the way through. Now, of all of those world records, we can hardly ever find a positive dope test. Mm-hmm. And something you had mentioned on Rogan last time, not this time you're on Rogan, was the potential for a animal cholesterol-based testosterone. Where it's like, would that be something that the Chinese would take, or like how could it be possible to be able to have this prolific of a weightlifting team and pass that many tests?
I'm not going to conflate is it possible to be doing this with that's why they're successful.
Right,
but
right.
Synthesized testosterone in a lab from soy, you can absolutely use animal grade cholesterol and derive it down the same way you would have. It's called steroidogenesis in your body, is like how your body takes cholesterol and breaks it down through a bunch of different enzymatic processes down to the actual molecule testosterone, and then have whatever amount of anabolism your body deems necessary to reach whatever functions that is required of testosterone. With the plant-derived testosterone that is found commercially, like there is a carbon isotope ratio test that you would fail in general if you were going to be using synthesized testosterone in a lab. However, if you had a chemist working for you, or you were looking to, skirt around the system, it's not even something that you can really pick up with current testing. because you could otherwise fail a basic steroidal module where you have like a T to epi-T ratio that is out of whack. You get a red
Right.
flag. If you get subsequently carbon isotope ratio tested, you need to fail that to have you have failed. You need to have like an affirmative test on the carbon isotope ratio. And if you pass that, then it's like, well, where do you go from there?
Yeah.
Are you going to prove that this cholesterol derived testosterone is mine versus from somewhere else? Like, you need more intricate, elaborate testing that I don't know to be developed yet.
So there also is like a half-life for the current typically used testosterone that can clear your system in a certain amount of time. But then would a carbon isotope test be able to detect it even then? Or
well, you could get around the basic screenings of the steroidal module through manipulation of timing, dosage frequency, ester, if any, administration, modality. You know, if you're going to do a intramuscular versus subcutaneous versus fucking IV, like who knows? It depends on how fast the drug is going to get into your blood and metabolized out. And then there are things people do to increase the metabolism of drugs and enhance that. But the ester itself and the choice of it, like the studies I've seen, even using enanthate, which is a relatively long ester, like there are certain individuals that could pass basic testosterone to epitestosterone ratio assessments with using like fairly significant doses of test based on just lackluster scope of the test to be able to, because they have to have it insensitive enough that it doesn't false positive people,
right.
but also sensitive enough that it catches people. So you have like this weird middle ground they try to play, and that's why they have the steroidal module to assess fluctuations. And if they see a weird fluctuation, even if it's within this more like vague range, they can kind of dial in a more narrow assessment of, okay, this looks weird for you, maybe not for the next guy.
And that's just assuming that they're using drugs that would be, I mean, and by say them, it could be anyone in the world. Are there currently drugs available that, or suspected to be available that you could pass a WADA test with?
There are a lot of drugs that just aren't on the list yet that are, like, again, when it comes to designer drugs and the synthesis of them, yeah, like oftentimes, as far as I know, WADA is looking at research pipelines to get ahead of things to make sure they have stuff on their list that could otherwise be ergogenic in some capacity, even if it hasn't been approved by the FDA for like a clinical application yet. Like, they have a lot of research chemicals on their banned substance list. But a lot of times there is, analogs or things that are somewhat the same, but not quite the same as this other drug, and those have not made it to the list.
I mean, I think a lot of people are going to see this the wrong way, and me saying like the Chinese are winning everything, they must be on drugs. It's like, well, that's weightlifting, so everyone's on drugs. It's just that they are notoriously never caught.
Yeah.
Right? And like, so I hate, again, it's like it draws that parallel immediately. Like, well, they got to be doing some sort of drug or some sort of they could be outworking, and that's what a lot of people say. They're working harder, they're better, they're just better. Their system is better. That's true. I think their system is better, their process is better, everything is better. But there has to be some way for some guy to be getting popped, and or to be getting popped or not getting popped. I guess I like to think that there's a lot of protection around their athletes. In the
you've done a good job of talking about some of the corruption and political stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's primarily what I'm interested in, but I think a lot of people, they conflate what I'm saying with America not on drug, everyone else on drug, America good, everyone else bad. When the only reason I know about American drug testing is because I was involved in the sport, and I know so many people that are in, at least for weightlifting, they're in the testing pool, and it's rigorous and it's brutal. Like, USADA wants to catch Americans, where I can't say the same is happening in China or other countries. Like, they're not just like USADA. It's like USADA versus everyone.
Yeah, like, it's tough to expect there to be the same level of scrutiny globally when you have to. It's not the detriment of an organization where they don't literally have stations within a country that's across the fucking planet. Like, you have to outsource the guy who's going to randomly show up, and he has to be trustworthy. within your organization, even if he doesn't belong to your organization, like you might be hiring somebody that is endorsed by, USADA, but isn't like literally, you don't have like USADA people parachuting into fucking.
Yeah. But I guess like the internal drug testing
Mhm.
in other countries, like I don't know that it's up to standard with USADA. And that is not to say, by the way, guys, I always have to disclaim these things because it's just like comment after comment is going to pile in. That's not to say that there aren't drug users in America. Like, this is factual. These things have been covered. There are plenty of drug users in America who have gotten around the system, who have been on the like USADA has been favored, or the governing body, the NGB of whatever sport they're playing, they have been treated favorably. That's not what I'm saying. What I've realized in weightlifting specifically is that USADA wants to catch people, okay, within the United States. Is there an organization in China that wants to catch Chinese athletes before they even go out to WADA? I can't say the same is true. And if there was, they would get those results and they'd be like, we'll just keep those on the down low for now. But I guess like if you were to try, if you had a lab, right? If you had a lab and you had a team of athletes that you wanted to pass drug tests, that you wanted to just maximize as much performance as you could out of them, what would be your process?
For like what sport?
For
Like
weightlifting. Let's say
specifically?
weightlifting. Yeah.
Like I would be looking for things that would enhance force production with a relative lack of increase in body weight. Like presumably there is like weight categories that we're trying to adhere to, and we are trying to be mindful of that. Like it kind of depends on, like, again, if the scrutiny is as exists within the banned substance list and like what you can do.
Let's say you got a team and you got a lab and you just get to work and you got the pharmacology.
I would be looking for drugs that can really enhance like motor unit recruitment mainly. So it would be like more on the neurological side than the trying to stack huge amounts of size on. And obviously a lot of that stuff is detectable. Off the top of my head, as far as like in versus out of competition testing, like I typically follow UFC more than Olympic testing. Okay. So sometimes I have to refresh myself on what the actual standards are. But like, for example, even in fighters, you're allowed to use amphetamines, for example, out of competition all the way up until fight day, essentially. Like there are certain things you could be doing from the neurological side that even just following the outlines and stipulations given the leeways that exist within the organization, like maximizing those that you might not even know exist.
Right. Yeah. The amphetamines one exists across USADA and WADA, I believe.
Okay.
So you can use them out of competition. They can't be even if you do use them out of competition and they're detected in competition, you can still get popped, I feel. But I feel like the half-life on those is hard or whatever. Sorry to interrupt.
No worries.
I guess actually then with drug tests in mind. So it's like a twofer, right? Like what drugs would you take and how would you get away with it? Or sorry, take, whatever. I just think it's an interesting thought experiment because like I think people need to know what they're up against. Let's say for fighting.
Yeah.
Not weightlifting.
Like in general, the biggest leeway right now is in the bioidentical compounds. So that's things that you would normally produce because it becomes very difficult to discern between what is supposed to be there versus not supposed to be there. So you get this massive leeway, not massive, but like far more substantial than you would with a synthetic drug that's never supposed to exist. So if you have like, if you're comparing Winstrol versus Test, it's like, is Winstrol ever supposed to be there in your body at any quantity, even a micro amount? No. So it's like, even if you have like a micro speck of it, you're going to get fucking pinged. So if you have Test though, it's like, oh, well, I guess you fall within this cutoff, but do you have like a UGT2B17 enzyme problem or like deficiency whereby you can metabolize drugs differently than the next guy or lack thereof, so you have a different T to EPT ratio, and then from there, do we carbon isotope ratio test you, or did you fall within our parameters that we didn't even follow up and try that because it was out of our budget, because we're not going to do that with every athlete.
Right.
So like in general, I think the bioidenticals have the most leeway and is probably what is the lowest hanging fruit if I was to identify something.
What is the most advantageous drug to take for a fighter without worrying about drug testing?
Like, again, it depends. Are you a guy who requires Endurance, or are you somebody
would
who
you say
requires power up? Like it's very
would you say like
person
EPO or
No, it's person specific.
okay?
So it's like if you're a heavyweight fighter who gasses out in round 1,
Yep.
is your biggest bang for the buck going to be using copious amounts of fucking Deca? Like obviously not. Like it wouldn't really make sense. It might make more sense to be using EPO and trying to get around the tests and try and enhance oxygen carrying capacity so you can actually make it to round 3 sort of thing. Like stuff like that. It's more like person specific than, and like maybe for Olympic lifting, it's different because it's like one max effort thing,
Right.
and everyone's doing the same shit, and
Yes.
everyone has to just achieve the same outcome in the same way, so to speak, with like more minor differences between what the like. It's not like you have a guy who's endurance deficient in Olympic lifting versus in the UFC kind of thing.
There are more variables and more
Yeah.
room to be good at one thing and good at like bad at another thing. Whereas weightlifting is just kind of all
Like some, hypothetically, let's just say you took a shit ton of steroids and you're a fighter. Maybe you push yourself into a weight category you didn't even want to get into, and you're sapping up more oxygen carrying capacity through the support of this tissue that is not even advantageous for your fighting skills. So it's like in that context, maybe I'm looking towards drugs that enhance skill acquisition or recovery time so I can get in the gym and do more reps, but not necessarily increase my body weight or increase my endurance or whatever it is. Enhance my sleep. Like, who knows?
And then do you feel like a lot of these countries or places that would be able to create the protocol necessary, do they have labs that could like make sure that their athletes aren't going to piss positive? Or is that too expensive, or what's the possibility behind that?
I would say the fact that I was able to get Matt Does Fitness drug tested and he doesn't even compete. Like I imagine at a high level, you're very much able to get, like, I know I've 100%, I'm not going to say like too specific, but people I know of have had like backdoor access to WADA accredited labs to be able to test the people they work with, as opposed to, you know, just trying to do guesswork. Like you would be able to cross-reference, okay, would this guy pop before he even gets tested kind of thing.
Well, that was the big thing with Icarus.
And you can also get blood work easily. Like you can go
blood work.
Yeah, and some of the stuff is more dictated by blood work. Because again, when you were looking at like an EPO doping case, you are typically only going to get tested for EPO if you pop or you have a red flag on your biological passport for your like actual RBC numbers, hemoglobin, hematocrit, reticulocytes, etc. Having your what's it called, like your CBC panel essentially is looking awry or looks fucked up.
Then they go and
baseline.
look for metabolites.
Yeah, and then at that point you would get actually assessed for the drug.
Right.
And recombinant EPO, is that in your system? And we're going to allocate more budget towards that. But
Yeah.
they're not going to like proactively do that necessarily. They would look for the red flag and then subsequently do the more expensive, rigorous testing. So sometimes even basic blood work is going to hedge against some of this stuff, which everyone has access to.
So are you aware of the Bulgarian weightlifting team at all? Like of the past?
Not really.
Have you heard? Have you?
If I saw it, maybe.
Have you heard of like Bulgarian training?
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, there was a very infamous, if you will, coach. His name's Ivan Abajev, and he basically created this system that was the hardest weightlifting system possible. 8 hours a day. You max out 3 to 4 times a day. Sometimes they were maxing out, like I've heard, 6 to 9 times a day.
Jesus.
What they do is they have a session. And the session, I think, is like 2.5 to 3 hours long. And they work up to maximal lifts, and then they rest 30 minutes. Work up to maximal lifts, rest 30 minutes, work up to maximal lifts. And then that's session 1.
Mm-hmm.
And then they do that 3 times a day. And they have Sundays off. I could be a little bit off on that, but that's it. And it's snatch, clean and jerk, front squat usually. Sometimes they pull. Max Ada, who was like one of my mentors in the past, he actually went and trained with Abajev because he just wanted to do it. Abajev was in America.
Yeah.
He tried to like recreate that here in the States, and it just did not work out, mainly because the drug use was it's a different game
Yeah.
now than it was in the 70s. And there is a story here from a guy who was a weightlifter on the 1970s Bulgarian team that is absolutely crazy. And I want to read it to you. I actually also want to show you a big documentary called School of Champions. Yeah, so you can see it's like this old school 70s training thing. And it's like this documentary. And over it, here's Abajev. That's the coach. And you just see these guys getting hammered by him, like absolutely destroyed. And then he sits there. Like you see so many missed lifts in this documentary. And then you see him kind of like scolding them. And then there's a bunch of parts where like they're just sitting down and talking. Like he's just preaching to them.
Mm-hmm.
It's very strange, man. Like basically he just created this system where he's going to beat the shit out of these guys all day, every day. And then when they get to competition, things are going to be easier. So this is an excerpt from one of those guys. His name was Valentin Hristov. And I think there's a younger Valentin Hristov, but this one's from the 70s. So at 15 years old, he snatched 130 and clean and jerked 160. It's very, very good. And then that's what he was selected. That's when Abajev said, okay, I'm going to work with you now. So then Abajev killed him, just murdered him with typical Bulgarian training. At 18 years old, he did 162 and a half and 200, which is very good for a natural 18-year-old. Like that's very solid. That at 100 kilos body weight. And he maintains that he never he was completely clean up to that point. Which is crazy. If that's true, that's very, very good. That's like elite. There have been Americans, there have been other people that have done that at 18 years old, so it's not unheard of. Mm-hmm. There are people who I believe are natural that have done that. But this is when Abajev said, all right, let's take drugs. We want you to be at 110 kilos body weight in 2 months for the European Championships. In Verona. I don't know where Verona is. Do you know Italy?
I don't want to guess.
Okay. Shit, I'm going to look like an idiot. So anyways, blah, blah, blah. With his first use of steroids and much stuffing at the training table, Ristov managed to quickly boost his weight and weighed at Verona at 108.2 kilos. And he snatched 165 and a half and clean and jerked 220. Jesus. That was 2 months after he did this. 162 and a half and 200. Damn. So 2 months later.
Yeah.
Okay. Then people started to get scared of doping in like the mid 70s. They were like, okay, we got to like ease up a little bit. He decided to go to a competition 70 days clean or some crazy, like he decided to stop taking drugs and he lifted horribly. So then he made the decision for the Olympics coming up in Montreal, like, let's fucking go hard. Mm-hmm. Okay, here's the fucking protocol. You ready for this shit?
Yeah.
Okay, Abajev was giving each lifter 180 Dianabol tablets of 5 milligrams per week. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday were 40-pill days, and Tuesday and Thursday and Saturday were 20-pill days. They were also being injected with the steroid Ritabolil. What's that? What's Ritabolil?
It's probably maybe a brand name for the...
I think it's got to be Deca, right?
Put in Wikipedia, it'll pop up what the actual compound is probably.
Ritabolil.
Nandrolone decanoate?
Yeah, Deca.
Okay, so it's like just like a branded version of it, of Nandrolone.
Okay. So
Deca D-Ball Classic.
Yeah, Deca D. But we'll talk about the dosage in a second. Ristov notes that his urine started turning brown, and he was passing out often during training. He started seeing stars. So they're even more scared before they go to Montreal now.
Yeah.
They're like, we don't want to get popped. So everyone starts to taper off the drug use. Montreal also starts going horribly. He hasn't showed up yet.
Yeah.
The lightweights go, then the heavyweights go. They usually, when you go to Olympic like training centers or like to train for the Olympics or train for Worlds, you get there like 2-3 weeks before to like get ready, and they train really hard, dude. The training halls at these places are amazing because they go fucking hard. And it was going horribly. The lightweights are doing bad. So in typical Abajev fashion, he brings the team together, and it's another one of his fucking speeches, like you see in the documentary. And he's like, "Look, I had to start giving you guys steroids because this is what the Russians did to be successful. It is impossible to not be successful in this sport without steroids. However, the Russians have access to amphetamines that we don't have access to. So it sucks for us. Let me introduce you guys to the magician." Okay?
Did it say the decadose or just the Debo dose?
I don't know what the decadose is. I got to find I maybe I'll be able to find it. So, those lifters who had not yet competed would go back on the steroid use, but with the aid of the magician and his catheter. He would empty their bladder. They would empty their bladders before being tested and have it replaced with clean urine by the magician before they had to submit a sample. They said they were going to select one athlete from your team and they were going to test you 2 days out from competition. Or they said they were going to select you and you were going to piss on competition day or something like that. Hristov was the guy selected. That's why this story is amazing, because this is from his account, and he like ultimately is incredibly depressed. I think he probably passed away now, but he's like not happy about how this whole shit went down.
Yeah. And his hormones are probably all over the fucking place for.
Dude, they said he had like a boil on his knee. He was stressed. His brain started changing, like his chemistry. He was turning into a different human being. So he said he was selected and he opted for the catheter instead of dropping out. He said, "Christ, was this what I banged away so hard for almost 6 years and for 8 hours a day?" Abajev gave him then, once he decided he was going to do the catheter, Abajev gave him 200 tablets of 5 milligrams each for July 24th and July 25th. Another 150 pills for the 26th, the day of his competition.
Oh my God, dude.
Yeah, so then he wins his gold medal. He goes home. He gets a new Volga automobile upon returning. And then he gets a notification, I don't know how they figure out, but we found trace amounts of steroids in your urine. It wasn't clean, fully clean piss, or it wasn't able to you couldn't get all of your piss out of your bladder. It's not possible, I guess. Yeah. But what do you think of that whole story, dude? This is the Bulgarian team. Like, this is why I want to bring it up, because this shit, like, no one's.
I want to pull out a calculator and even see what that was.
Yeah,
mind-blowing.
Let's go over the numbers here.
Let's see. So you said 200.
So like the initial dose to like absolutely go fucking crazy leading up to the Olympics was 180 Dianabol pills at 5 milligrams.
Right. So 900 milligrams per week, right?
Yep. How is that? What's that?
Over 128.57 milligrams per day if you were taking it evenly, but I know they
staggered up and down. They did 50.
But yeah, that's like.
Is that huge?
Yeah, that's huge.
Like, tell me how, what's the...
Like, for context, to get pretty good results, you would take something like 20 to 30 milligrams, and then at most, you might take like 40 to 50 per day. And that would be like...
And they were taking what?
128 per day. Well, on some days, probably like 200, and then some days a bit... But yeah, overall.
Okay, so then... After having, so he had to taper off longer because he's a heavyweight.
That's an example of just like again, obviously I wouldn't expect somebody in the 70s to be educated. Like, there was no information.
But it's also, that's Abajev, the guy. Like, his training matches his fucking drug use.
But the interesting thing, though, is when you're looking at the dose clinically for muscle wasting or what it's actually prescribed for at that time, it's kind of, I'm just wondering what the justification is to be like, you know what, they're prescribing 5 milligrams or 2.5 to 5 milligrams for, I think it was used for HRT for a while, Dianabol. In men, it was like 2.5 milligrams or something would be like therapeutic TRT. So let's, fucking 10x it essentially, or 100x it.
So if this will maybe make more sense, Max, Ada, like I said, my mentor who trained with Abajev in the States, he was saying like, you know what? Let me just explain to you what the Bulgarian system is. There's a door right there. What we're going to do is we're going to bash our fucking head against the wall until it opens up instead of taking the door.
Jesus.
Like, this is what we do. I don't care.
Yeah.
We're going to sacrifice everything, our lives. This is us. 8 hours a day training, 6 days a week for 6-8 years. Right? And you can watch this documentary, man. Like, just sit down and watch it one day, and you'll be like, none of this looks fun.
Yeah.
There's
No, I
not
can
one
imagine.
smile in the entire thing. They're all just like dying.
Mm-hmm.
And he's feeding them copious amounts of drugs. So I think the drug use goes in line with the system.
Oh,
right?
yeah, for sure. That's like full board kitchen sink. Well, I don't know how much works, so let's just 10x the dose.
And then, okay, so like I said, he had to taper off.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many days out. I think it was like 20 days out. Whereas the lighter guys only had to taper off like 13 days out. I don't know what their calculations were. They had all these like crazy like doctors running around and shit. It's kind of cool actually. Like there's all these characters and stuff. And when they realized, hey, we're doing horribly, like we got to do something here.
Yeah.
We're going to do the catheter trick. When they said that, they're like, okay, well, quickly, we got to jack you back up with all fucking Dianabol we can. So he gives him, and probably might want to bring out the calculator again. For each day, what do we have here? 200 tablets of 5 milligrams for the 24th and the 25th.
So 1,000 milligrams. You said 200.
So 200 times 5 for each day.
Yeah, so 3 days, you said?
And then 150 on the third day.
Right.
So 1,000, and then what's 150 times 5?
750.
Yeah, 1,750 in 3 days.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, that's fucking way overkill. For sure.
Yeah.
That's absurd.
It's absolutely ridiculous.
For context, if you took even like 40, 50 milligrams Dianabol, I'm sure the people watching can attest to the ruthless lower back pumps, the water retention, high blood pressure changes. Like once you get to this like 50 milligrams plus, you're just like Michelin Man territory if you're eating enough food to be conducive to like growing huge amounts of size and getting as strong as fuck. And it's just like so much waterlogged. Like you literally turn into the Michelin Man. And after doing a set of even the worst blast I ever did that was just irresponsible with Deca D-ball involved, I firmly remember having to like go sit in a massage chair in the gym after just like a couple sets of deadlifts because your lower back is just like so fucking pumped you can't even stand. You're like lying on a bench, hyperextending your back,
Trying to relax.
yeah, like it's hard to describe like even what it feels like. It's not like your kidneys are being damaged really. It's just like you have this I don't know, it's just like this taxation of your lower back and it just feels like pumped and then it's just like unbearable and you have to just go lie down until it goes away.
There's got to be like a moment for like drug use where you feel like I can't even be a human being anymore. Like how if I can't walk around or even lay down comfortably. Like,
No, it's like if you took Tren and you get Tren cough, it's like the most like
Tren cough?
Huh?
What's Tren cough?
You never heard of Tren cough?
No.
It's when you inject typically trenbolone acetate. If some people don't get it, some people get it. A lot of people get it, and occasionally you will have like a reaction. People think it's like a prostaglandin reaction, whereby your body essentially is trying to like reject the drug by coughing vigorously, and you just end up injecting it. You feel it coming on, and all you can do is really like brace yourself, and then you start hacking up a lung for about a few minutes.
Whoa.
Yeah, and there's no moment more I don't know, like
Regretful?
yeah, where it's like for example, if you watched some fucked up porn and you busted a nut,
Yeah.
right after you feel like
You're like,
shame.
"Oh, God
You're like, what
damn."
am I doing? I'm disgusting. Like I'm a fucking terrible person.
Yeah.
Like,
Tren cough
yeah, what
is
am I
the
doing?
post-nut
Yeah,
clarity.
exactly.
Post-Tren clarity.
Yeah, you're just like bracing the sink, knowing you're about to get fucked up by some cough that you self-induced by your hormone use. And you're like, God damn it. And You're just
Yeah.
looking at yourself in shame as you hack up a lung. And,
Dude.
Yeah. It's rough. It's rough.
Jesus Christ. Okay, so yeah, I needed to throw that at you. So now you have something to talk about, like, because when I tell you, and like we'll look back at, I just want to show you, like, to kind of come full circle with this. If we look at, so there's like different eras of weightlifting, because they've jumbled the weight classes around. And if we look at the 1972 to 1992, that's where you see Bulgaria. Bulgaria. See? Just all the way across the board. Just fucking Bulgarian. And then obviously Soviet Union as well. That's it. That's what it led to. And a lot of these numbers are like never going to be surpassed ever.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right. Something I wanted to like get into, I guess, was the natty or nots.
Mm-hmm.
And do you feel like they were taken the wrong way, or do you feel like it lessened your like educational knowledge? Because I think there's a decent amount of pushback against the natty or not thing because the algorithm took it and ran with it. And now you have people just going natty or not, natty or not, natty or not.
It's like overarchingly, obviously the response is like majorly positive, or else no one would keep doing them. Mm-hmm. So it's just a feedback loop of positivity ultimately that leads to these continuing. But yeah, they're often, it depends on what you were talking about though, because sometimes it could be based on actual science or based on research or based on a lot of times though speculation, eye tests. You know, does a guy look saucy? Is his delts capped enough? Is his traps like disproportionately jacked? You know, that kind of stuff. It's very much subjective as to, is this your preference of content versus not? And if it gets littered into what you otherwise thought was, you know, just a educational platform, or even if you had oftentimes if you get used to certain content as you've experienced yourself, your OG content does not always reflect what your current content will. And as you transition to new things and you expand your horizons and you do things that you're getting positive feedback on, sometimes the original content will be more diluted among the other stuff. And I don't know, like as far as what I think about them in general,
I feel like the term natty or not is just a title.
Yeah.
It's just a click, something for people to click.
It's like a category in itself.
You play the game, I play the game of finding a title that audiences will click.
Mm-hmm.
It's copy. It's like the biggest part of YouTube.
Yeah.
That people just don't think about is thumbnail title. And your approach to natty or not is, how can I display my understanding of this, of education?
Yeah.
Like that I know about these exogenous hormones. Well, here's a great example of it. Like, you're just delivering examples of things that you know about and you want to talk about.
Yeah, I try to be as informative as I can in those kinds of videos, even though a lot of them are on the surface just like a lot of people will just see a clickbait title or a thumbnail and then just assume it's a nonsense video that's just about mind-numbing, you know, look at this picture, and now look at this picture, and now look at this picture. They're both pretty juicy, right? What about this one? And it's
I'm guilty of that. I am, and I know who you're talking
about.
about.
Like that shit. So,
right.
You know, like, what are you supposed to not make the content?
Right.
Yeah. So I try to be as educational as I can, as frequently as I can. But you know, there is, after you start to grow too, you have different subsects of your subscribership that want certain videos. Like sometimes it'll be months before I make a video on hair loss prevention, and then people are like, I don't give a fuck about any of the other shit you talk about. Go make a hair loss video. You know? Because it's like at one time it might have been a big chunk of your content, and now disproportionately it's less. So
yeah, I think this is something I learned when I started YouTube. Someone said to me, "What's your expertise?" Mm-hmm. Because I was just making videos and they were shitty. I sent it. It was like CrossFit training vlogs.
Okay.
And someone was like, "Yeah, this is all cool editing and stuff." But like, why would I care about this? You have no goal that you've displayed for me or any of that shit. Like, the final thing they said was, "What's your expertise?" And I said, "Oh fuck, I can help people snatch and clean and jerk more weight." Mm-hmm. There's a big subset of people who want to do that, and there's a big hole that I can fill with information on how to do that effectively and give people tangible steps. And I feel like that's an approach that you've had. Like there's a big gap of exogenous hormone education to the masses, and even so in doctors. And you've talked about this with Merrick Health and trying to develop something that educates people more. Do you feel like that's the process that you ultimately wanted to go down?
Yeah, like ultimately, I feel like there needs to be more education about endocrinology, how hormones work, how it impacts your biology. Because, like, even at like 15, for like really young ages, girls are getting thrown on essentially what is shitty HRT, basically, for years. And it's like understanding how that impacts your physiology is very worthwhile because it's literally so impactful on everything in your life, essentially. So,
How strange is it that we talk about TRT in such a way, or we talk about use of exogenous hormones in such a way, but
yeah.
because the medical, the scale of use of birth control,
Yeah.
nobody talks about how incredibly impactful progesterone or estrogen blockers, or would it be estrogen blockers, whatever, the main things that
Yeah.
are given to girls at like 13, 14 years old. Like, we don't talk about that at all. We're just messing with their hormones immediately.
Yeah, and even if they were, even the, attempts at making male birth control, they're all derived from, like, DECA, for example. Like, it's not literally DECA, like nandrolone decanoate, but it is nandrolone is often the parent compound that is then chemically manipulated to create, like, levonorgestrel is one of the most popular progestins used in women's birth control. Very suppressive at even small dosages and orally bioavailable enough to work. And in men, the attempts at creating male birth control modalities involve similar things. They'll be looking at synthetic progestins that are derived from nandrolone or analogs of that to then create what is basically something that shuts you down so significantly that you have azoospermia when you have like no viable sperm at all. And it's basically like a shitty version of taking gear.
Yeah.
Like, because you don't get any of the benefits.
Yeah.
You just get like shut down essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is, yeah, it's just something that people just bought into like it was not a big deal. I never had any concern for, obviously I'm not a woman,
Yeah.
but I was just like, are you on birth control? It would be like getting with a chick. Are you on birth
Yeah.
control or not? Like, I don't care. It doesn't, like, it's just like a pill that you take. It's magic. There's no effects. There's no side effects. Like, it's
Yeah.
been proven. It's been used over and over again. And yet no one considers the fact that it's
No,
fucking...
most people's girlfriends are not natty, bro.
Oh, God. Okay. Do you think that the truthfulness, the potential truthfulness of people in their steroid use, if someone's successful, would cause more people, mainly kids or like young adults, to want to take steroids? They might equate, here's my hero, he's open about taking steroids. And even though he does give me plenty of disclaimers, like I went through this first, I can therefore do what he does, if he or she does, by taking these drugs.
Yeah, that's a tough kind of, it's a hard, nuanced discussion because it's like, yeah, you could definitely argue that if some guy has a very, very admirable, something you aspire to be from a physique context, and he says, yeah, the reason I look like this is because of gear, but like, don't do it. If you're following that guy because he inspires you, like there's potentially some realm of encouragement, even subtly, subconsciously maybe, or unspokenly, that might be happening for you to be like, oh, to gain this level of success or notoriety or influence in social media. Like there's definitely a push in social media more recently to take gear at absurdly young ages because it seems like frankly, in the fitness industry, the personalities are typically pretty shit. Like, let's be honest. Most people are, more focused on how do I get fucking shredded, look sick on camera, rather than information, entertainment through means other than just like lifting stuff. Which, whatever. Like, you can do whatever you want. Like, both are valuable mediums. But when you have so many people hyper focused on the physique is the thing I'm going to hammer on because that's the only, like, what I can wrap my head around, or I don't think I'd be successful in this other vector or whatever. A lot of people are encouraged to take shit that they might have not, years ago when the fitness industry wasn't so prominent and seen as like a viable way of marketing yourself. So I think it's a consequence of, social media for sure, mainly, but also, yeah, like if somebody who has a sick physique and you see to be your idol, I can imagine that might have some encouraging amount of influence on somebody who's young and impressionable for sure. And then on the other side of the spectrum, it's like, well, do you let that guy just fuck themselves up by not educating them about, if you're going to do it, this is what you have to be mindful of so you don't end up with a heart attack at, 35 or this or that. Because it's like, are they going to do it anyways? And then should that person just keep it in the dark of what they're doing? It becomes this weird, nuanced discussion.
I think you have set the perfect example for that. So if I was to look at your content over the years, there is equal to, maybe even more content advocating against the use of steroids.
Yeah.
And not just advocating against it, but showing what could happen.
Yeah.
You have a lot of guys, like you've talked about people balding like hyper fast. You've talked about people getting horrible cystic acne. Trend the movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
that's fun.
Like you give plenty of examples of, hey, don't do it because like you should earn it first type of things. You say, hey, if you're a fucking jackass, like this shit's gonna fuck you up, and here you go.
Yeah.
Right? You've said that. You've also said that you have taken steroids and you've made a ton of mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Don't make the mistakes that I do if you decide to. You've also opened a clinic where you promise that the people in this clinic are going to advocate not against the use of steroids or any sort of hormones, but they're going to try and get you healthy. It's health first.
Yeah, and sometimes getting healthy does involve hormones.
Right.
But oftentimes it doesn't. So just having that balanced approach whereby you are taking a broad spectrum approach from a preventative health standpoint or preventative medicine standpoint to address deficiencies, imbalances, lifestyle, I don't know, just things that you are overlooking that's low-hanging fruit before you start to just jump into the realm of replacing hormones for the rest of your life. Like there is definitely, and this is why education, I feel like, again, is so important, because you might otherwise just think, I need TRT because I had a 250 nanogram per deciliter test level on one blood test, and it's one snapshot in time from potentially a multitude of factors that contributed to this one snapshot in time looking very suboptimal, and perhaps you do not need it. And I've seen a lot of guys get on TRT haphazardly because they went to a place that otherwise just looks at a number and then makes a prescription accordingly, or just cares about selling you medications or whatever. And having that balanced approach, I think, is critical. But also understanding it when you go in, so you know if you're getting finessed by a clinic or whatever
that wants to sell you shit.
Yeah, like you need to understand, like, do I even medically need this? Would I benefit from it? Is it advantageous? Is it even supportive of my health or counterproductive right now? Like, what am I even doing? Like, it sounds fucked up because you want to go to a medical provider who you can trust to inform you of things from scratch. And it's part of the reason why you pay for such like premium services. But I think there is some level of due diligence that needs to be done on your own too, to kind of have like an idea, an educated sort of broad spectrum cursory overview at least of what's going on. So because you need to be able to discern high quality information and education from what could otherwise just be like a marketing driven, I don't know. Like, I'm not trying to say that, not all clinics are bad. Like, there are a lot that are doing all the right things. And this isn't even just about clinics. It's also just about not fucking yourself up, and knowing, because a lot of people are going to self-replace TRT, like, on their own. They're going to use UGL shit. Yep. They're going to use gear. They're not going to involve doctors because it's far more cost prohibitive to use pharma-grade stuff. So they will go, the UGL route and cost, 1/5, 1/10 the price, and get their own blood work and try and, diagnose it themselves. And I'm not suggesting to do it without a doctor, but it's just having as much education going into anything to do with manipulating your body's, like, the chemistry in your body is, like, fucking critical in my opinion. Like, you couldn't know enough. Even if you're going to an expert, like, I've gone to experts that I thought were experts, and they ended up saying, like, nonsensical things sometimes.
Right. And they don't give you a big blood panel to do, or... Yeah. I think, you talk about broad spectrum, but you could look at it from a content standpoint, covering 3 bases, let's say it is. One is talking openly about steroid use, then warning people of the problems, maybe giving examples.
Yeah.
And then the third one would be like education. And you need to do all of those. If you are, and I think that's the thing is like we talk about The Rock, Chris Hemsworth, people that have been accused in the past of being on steroids. It's like, are they able to provide that to everyone in a good way? And if they can't, is it a net good for them to say that they're taking steroids? And that's the thing. That's the ethical dilemma.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it gets more conflated when they sell something that's based on their physique and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
It's weird. Like, I don't know the answer either. Sometimes it's convoluted.
That's the philosophical issue. It's like, what's the harm in being open about steroid use? Well, if you're not prepared to give every bit of information and package it the right way where you can tell people all these different things to cover, you could do more harm potentially. And there's a decent argument to be made. I think it's a scary thing to think about. It's not scary. It's just it puts you in a little bit of a quagmire, a little bit of a quandary, as they say. Let's see here. Oh, okay. So you are like, from my interactions with you, you are like very much a businessman. Mm-hmm. But because my initial interactions with you, and I've had this with other people who have been content creators, I saw you as a creator. Mm-hmm. I saw you as somewhat of like an artist.
That's flattering.
I did because it's like you create and then you display and people watch. But knowing you now and knowing that you have these businesses, it's like I could be podcasting you, being like, how do I do this about business and all that? What was your balance in that? Like, when you started your YouTube channel, was it like, hey, look, I have these ideas for these products. I want to be able to explain them. Or was it like, I'm good at explaining this thing. I want to start a product.
It was more because, again, when you start, there's no chance you have the financial resources to create something from scratch and hire employees and do this and that. Like, you very likely are starting with, like, I think I started online with like $100. I bought my computer, and then after that computer purchase, I had maybe a couple $100 left. So from there, like, it's not like you're going to create a product or do anything, and you have no influence because you have no following yet. So you're very much just making content about what you feel to be interesting. You have unique insight on. You're somebody who's actually follow-worthy for that information. Mm-hmm. Stuff you enjoy, ideally, so it's sustainable. And maybe down the line, and this is very much what I did, anything that I was talking about that was monetizable as a product that I actually used, believed in, felt had utility for most of the people who follow my stuff, etc., you would see if they have, an affiliate program or something. Right. And then could you be a sponsor for them or have an affiliate link that would, give you a kickback or something. And in general, it would be like, what's stuff I already use? And can you get, a 10% commission for putting that, by the way, guys, like, this is the one I use. And then you would put a link to it or whatever.
Right.
But the disclaimer is, like, I use it, but it doesn't necessarily mean this is the only one that works or anything like that. This is why I believe it to be superior. And fortunately, there's so many companies with affiliate programs that it's really hard to put on somebody that they're biased because they have an affiliate thing. Because it's like you could otherwise, typically, if, like, again, I guess this is not the flexibility when you first start maybe necessarily, but typically you can go sign up for any other company's affiliate program if you wanted to, if you were a valuable enough resource. So it's not like, oh, I'm heavily biased to this one thing, because you could otherwise just go affiliate for the same product somewhere else.
Yeah.
So in general, like, I feel like most people, how they start and how they can start to monetize is stuff they already use and truly believe in. And it comes off if you're lying too. Like, it's pretty obvious to tell who's authentic and actually uses the shit they use. At least in my opinion. Right. I think for the most part it is. Because you see people plug dumb shit like all the time, like, oh, buy this mobile game that I don't even play or whatever. Yeah, dude. And it's like, shut up.
But it's like,
but again, it's just like, you if you support that person too, then maybe you just tune out and you're like, oh, good for them. Like, they're making money on it.
Yes. I'm that route, knowing that, like, the money struggles can be hard for being a creator.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
so that's
AdSense isn't that great. Mm-hmm. And if someone offers you like a whole month's AdSense or, for a 30-second clip. It sounds pretty great. And like people got to accept the fact that people need to make money.
Yeah.
And I don't think you're being insensitive to that at all.
Yeah, that's why I quickly put in that preface.
Right, yeah. I know that you're not. But what I think is like,
but I would be highly doubtful anybody off the bat could be creating their own products unless they were a highly influential person or had like family money to work with or whatever. Like, it's typically not the case.
So, but did you have the idea for Gorilla Mind, or you're like, I'm going to start this, build this, and then I'm going to do a product? Or was it like, I might as well do a product while I'm here?
No, I was asked by my current business partner now, who I had known for like 5 or 6 years prior.
Yeah.
He knew my knowledge of supplementation, pharmacology, and my interest in it, and continuing to stay up to date with research and literature, something he was less interested in staying up with because he already had one successful business and then was very interested in getting a nootropic product created. He said, hey, can you formulate this for me? I said, sure. He's like, we should, start this company. That's how Gorilla Mind came to be, essentially, is that was the first product. It was Gorilla Mind Rush and Gorilla Mind Smooth. One was a stimulant-based nootropic. One was non-stim. And, it sort of just came from that. He just came to me. He trusted my opinion. And that's it. It was like, I don't know, like 2 or 3 years into online work.
Okay.
So it's not like it was an off-the-bat thing that I planned ahead on.
Right.
It just sort of like naturally came to me, which isn't a normal thing to have a friend who has business experience, who trusts your opinion so much that he would ask you to partner with him on creating a product. So it's not necessarily like a step-by-step that I would say is a blueprint, because it's not typical. But in general, I think a lot of people, the step-by-step that a lot of people could otherwise relate to and follow is the whole, if they wanted to be a creator, this is kind of what I would do personally, is very much starting with stuff you feel to be impactful, you're passionate about, you're educated about, you have a unique insight on, and then from there, promoting stuff you actually believe in and use. Yeah. And trying to get, often these companies will ignore you too. Like I promoted stuff that I never make $1 on because I just use it.
Yeah.
Or you'll put up an Amazon link, even though it's like a 2% affiliate commission or whatever, because you would rather plug that than a shitty thing that you get nothing on that you don't even use.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or like in general with Amazon, the commission structure is like so pitiful, but if you actually use that product, it would be more rewarding. Often the ROI to like people can tell when you're fucking lying. Is like what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. You're not just promoting.
Yeah. Like you don't want to be like, well, I like for example, I don't know, like this ketoconazole shampoo that we just started selling recently. Like I've been using ketoconazole shampoo for hair loss since before my channel even started. If you had a company come to you and offer you like some, I don't know, massive amount and their shampoo is shittier in your
It's
opinion,
not as good as the one that you were using.
Yeah. Like you kind of like, I guess, again, it could come down to the ROI on if you need money or not. So maybe, who am I to judge? But in general, I think the longevity of picking stuff that actually aligns with what you use and recommend resonates more and will ultimately give you the longevity to transition into high impact recommendations that people trust you on when you come out with your own product.
Yeah.
Because if you dilute your recommendation so significantly by just plugging whatever the fuck, you're sort of on the long tail side of things, forward thinking, you might be diluting the impact of your recommendations a bit.
I can't think of the saying offhand, but it's like the guy who doesn't speak as much usually has more value. Or you know what I mean? Yeah. It's kind of the same thing as like if you are constantly peddling shit.
Yeah, like I don't
it's
know.
It's hard for people to take anything that you peddle seriously.
Yeah, like I don't know about you, but podcasters that have dedicated ad reads where they script it and they just hammer them out because they're obligated to, I tune out. Like I know at that point they're saying it for the sake of saying it rather than because they actually also believed in it too. I don't know. It's kind of because again, sometimes people on camera might just talk like that. It's hard to say for certain, but
look, the idea of advertisement in general is like hammer this image, hammer this thing into people's brains, regardless if they tune out or not. If I say car insurance, you're going to be like Geico. Yeah. Doesn't mean that like that commercial was effective. Maybe it was funny, but like you didn't go purchase Geico. Yeah. When you saw that commercial, but now if you're going to look online for car insurance, you're probably going to see what Geico has to offer. I don't know, Yeah. And I think that is shitty, but it's effective. But what we're asked to as creators is like, we need to provide a metric. So it's like, they don't want us to just display their ads. They want to now track how much we sell. And that's ultimately like one of the hardest things for me is like just getting, if I have a video with 100,000 views from people who actually went out of their way to watch it, and then I had an unskippable ad play for them, that's some value right there. But because they have the ability now to determine whether people clicked and bought their product, they say that, oh, that's not ROI positive to them. Yeah. That's just one of the issues that I've had with brands in the past.
At least fortunately, what I can say, and I feel to be likely the case for the longevity of a creator in terms of monetization, is when you actually use something and care about it and you genuinely have it in your life or have otherwise vetted it and used to use it and believe in it or whatever, typically you will convert better than the guy who is doing it just for the money, which will then typically be a disproportionately better ROI for even the company sponsoring you.
Yeah.
Because I've seen massive fitness influencers who suck, like terrible at selling, because they didn't really believe fully in what they were doing, or otherwise didn't actually use the products they talk about or whatever.
Yeah.
And might have given the impression that was like, I don't know, a little bit too over exaggerated, or just, I don't know, just came across as a little bit fake or phony in what they're saying. And then individuals who are just very relatable, they only talk about what they actually use themselves or believe in, they convert heavily. But, it's it's like if you need to support yourself too. So it's just like, it's a
tough game.
Yeah.
All right. So you and I made a vlog.
Yeah.
And in it, we were talking, you asked me if I ever wanted to be down in single digit body fat.
Right.
And I said I would go insane. Yeah. And if I did go to single digit body fat, I would look like, everyone would say, wow, Zach, do you even lift? It's like the only time I've ever been called big is now, currently. Mm-hmm. And I feel kind of fat, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Probably around 18% body fat. And I said there was one time where I was like, I would say 12, maybe 11, maybe 10% body fat. And I had nice visible abs. There were certain striations in places, but to everyone on the internet, I was a skinny, do you even lift guy.
To everyone in the fitness industry who has skewed expectations.
Yeah, well, I guess the internet that surrounds the fitness industry, maybe they don't work there, but they consume the fitness industry.
Yeah.
And then I said, for me, that was good. And you're like, funny how you said for me.
Yeah.
When it should be for everyone.
Oh, yeah.
Right, is what I'm assuming.
Yeah, because objectively, if you're, in top shape, you're down to, that's not a normal thing to be walking around at. What do you weigh?
So right now I'm way heavy. So at that time, I was probably 215 and really felt solid. Felt awesome. But again, people were calling me a skinny
it's not
dork.
It's not like you're 160 pounds or something.
Right.
At your height, proportionally, because again, it's not like 160 is bad for some people, obviously. And again, it's all subjective at the end of the day. Even my view has been scaled back over the years as I've started to downsize more and care way less about bodybuilding and stuff. But I used to have this fucked up view too, where I'd see a guy who was on a men's physique stage or something, and he looks insane by any person's standards. He is the top 0.00001% physique, and then it's like, well, that guy's back sucks or whatever. It's just like fuck,
dude.
What do you gotta do?
The problem is it's melting into everyday society in a smaller way, but the prevalence of TikTok and TikTok fitness and how young that is, and just people just being able to comment and say things about the way people look, and this is again geared towards men. This has happened to women since the dawn of time, but our skewing of what is good and what is bad. I think obviously we could say drug use. That's the one we don't want to compare drug enhanced lifters to natural lifters because that creates a false understanding of what's possible. But I also think that the curation of photos from natural lifters, getting the right lighting, getting all these things, that's a big effect on it as well. And it's much, much more prevalent now.
Yeah, it's wild how people don't understand the differences between basic lighting still.
And pumps.
Yeah, you'll see, for example, David Lade, I guess one of the, at least now, I believe him to be natural probably, but, you know, it's not to speak about his past. But anyways, now he very much is one of the most aesthetic, you know, perceived to be natural guys, and has incredible muscle insertions, has like a crazy, his six-pack is dialed from like a insertions aspect, like everything looks really, really good. And when you see him pumped in perfect lighting, etc., it's like, oh, this guy's the most jacked fucking guy ever. But then you see him in a shirt just walking around or hanging out, just walking around in broad daylight. Like, oh.
Just looks like a healthy guy.
Yeah, it's just like a fit person, you know? You don't think of him in that context. And it's just surprising how people who are so entrenched in this industry still fall for that and will look at the downlit, heavily pumped, perfectly manipulated, sharpened fucking image of a guy and be like, oh, why don't you look like that now? Even though it could have been 20 minutes ago and now you're walking around outside.
I mean, if I'm perfectly honest with you, like, it for sure has weighed on me a lot. It hurts. I mean, it not hurts, but it's just, it sucks because like, I'll show up to places and I'll do, I've done like plenty of collabs with people, and it's like, I just don't fit in. Like, I'm not a big guy, like, in that way. I'm big and that I'm tall, and lately I've put on a lot of mass, but it's a decent amount of fat. But like, it's hard. You know, I want to kind of be like that a little bit.
You want the 3D muscle insertions.
The thing too is, like, I know that I still don't work hard enough to be there. Like, I could take everything and put it into it, but I just don't know if I want to do that. So it's like, maybe I'm digging my own grave.
You think you don't work hard enough to get that? Or do you think it's just your standard for what is good? And
I don't know the answer to that.
I would imagine it's your standard because, like, as long as how much do you train each week? Like, you're
Every day.
And you train hard from what I've seen.
Yeah.
So what the fuck more can you do besides if you're skipping literal meals and not sleeping?
I mean, that's probably, I could be better. I could be better at nutrition. I could be better at sleep, for sure.
And define better. Is that like eating less to look leaner so it physically has a
maybe
more
that's the case
cosmetically
too.
good appearance?
Yeah.
Or like,
yeah. You know, it's a hard thing when it's like, am I doing everything I could? Maybe I could do more. Maybe I could do more. Or like, maybe the standard that I'm trying to meet is just ridiculous.
Maybe.
I can't tell.
Like, what do you consider good? Like, if you look at a physique and you're like, that is a great physique that you would aspire to be.
It's tough. I honestly think that, like,
well, you must have
all
some standard that you're proportionally comparing yourself to even come to the conclusion that you're suboptimal.
You know what's crazy is, like, I would like to look like some of the guys who weigh 220 pounds that are my height.
Okay.
And yet, when I weigh 220 pounds at my height,
yeah,
I look like a fucking twink. You know?
Okay.
And so that's like 6'4", 220 is big for a lot of people.
Yeah.
For me, that was the smallest I've been in a long time. And I competed in jiu-jitsu. So it was like, I can show you a picture. You know what? Let's do that. I'll show you a picture. And it was like leading up to jiu-jitsu. I had to be 217 pounds. And it was coming off of weightlifting where, like, in weightlifting, I was weighing, 230 all the way up to 260 for weightlifting. And so that stark change into, I got to scroll down here for that. That stark change into then, being 220 was big for me. And people, it's weird when you get into the fighting world, like 220 is fucking massive. Mm-hmm. Like every dude in the gym is 170 or like lighter, like even the tall guys are really, really light. So I switched to training like mainly jiu-jitsu. So this is me doing L-sit pull-ups, right? Like that's...
You look great.
Yeah. And the thing is though, like in those, people would just be like, do you even lift? And I know that's just stupid. I shouldn't listen to their... it's like I'm caught between a rock and a hard place. And I guess
when you're making content about lifting and then people are comparing you to the premier cream of the crop people who have the most virality, because ultimately the individuals you see the most of are the most viral, best physical representations of what inspires you. So,
Yeah.
like, you're going to be hammered with those kinds of physiques on your Explore page and the people you're following. So you're just used to that
And
standard.
and the people that watch those are used to it, and they see my arms, and they're like, "What the hell? Like, you look tiny." I guess I'm just gonna have to fucking deal with that. Like this, I felt so like just good. I felt like it's a 50-kilo dip, you know,
Yeah.
and I felt really good. But like,
I think you look good.
skinny ass arms, like.
I bet you in different circumstances it could look much better versus like there are so many different ways you can manipulate this shit. Like it's not like you're trying to look like have the most optimal downlighting or like circumstance there. You're just doing an exercise.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think after this bulk or whatever, and I'm trying to do this movie. I don't know if I've told you about this. We're making a narrative feature film on weightlifting.
I think you might have mentioned it.
And I'm acting in it.
Oh.
And I'm supposed to be playing a weightlifter.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is I'm 6'4",
So
and a lot of
and
and a lot of weightlifters are 6 feet at the tallest in that weight class, in that weight category. So in order to look like I'm big,
right.
I have to be a lot bigger, right? So right now I'm around. I think I would say I'm closer to 250 body weight.
Yeah.
And like you can see in this top picture, I just posted it today before I posted the picture with you and I. Like I'm starting to now look like a weightlifter would. I've got some chunk around the belly, but like this is the physique that I would like to go for that film. Mm-hmm. And I'm finally there, and we're shooting in 2 months or whatever. After that, I want to go back to feeling athletic and being sub 220.
What's your appetite like when you try to go leaner?
It's actually higher. Like
as in
because I do a ton more cardio. Mm-hmm. I do a ton more jiu-jitsu.
Like I would expect your appetite to be you eat more.
Yeah.
Oh, so you increase your energy expenditure so significantly that you can.
It's maybe I don't eat more. Like I feel like I'm hungrier more.
Right.
Not because I'm starving myself, but it's just like.
Well, you're in a deficit.
I'm just like moving. It feels like I'm just pumping through things more. If that makes sense. Like now it's like I could not eat or I could eat. But once I get started eating now, 2,000 calories easy. Just fucking, I can hammer food until I'm.
You ate pretty late last night.
I know.
Yeah.
But,
you even left a piece of your steak, bro. What was up with that?
Well, you're fucking calling me out on the fucking. I'm a big eater, okay? Fuck you. No, it's like I'll snack.
Okay.
I'll do things where it's like, okay, that's where you're getting your calories. There's a lot of people. You say, okay, well, the only way to do this is to be in a deficit, right?
Yeah.
As far as we know, there's this guy Bart K. I don't know if you've seen him. He's been.
Oh yeah, he lit up Doucette a few times.
Yeah,
but
he's a fucking
actually.
idiot. That guy.
Yeah.
I would gladly just call him an idiot because he's so vitriolic and so fucking rude about like things he doesn't have to be.
Wasn't he on Mark Bell too?
Yeah.
How'd that go?
I don't know. No, you know what? I think Nsima was like pushing back on him, and he was just like, I got to ask Nsima more about it.
I would imagine the comments are all just shitting on the guy.
Yeah. Likely deservedly so. But anyways, as far as we're concerned, calories in versus calories out. And a lot of times people say, well, I'm like tracking all my calories and like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing and nothing's happening. It's like, well, you did forget about that like one time where you snuck up and had like 3,000 calories on accident. You just like happened to have like 5 pieces of cake because you were hungry. But then the next 3 days you were okay, right? So I do a lot of stuff like that, but I don't care because I'm trying to gain weight. Mm-hmm. I feel like though when I'm like moving around a lot and I'm not like actively really cutting, I'm just being healthier and just moving more. I feel like that is where my appetite goes up, and it just the timing of when I eat is better, and all these things are better. So
now your body just works better when you were constantly moving and like actually facilitating the assimilation of the nutrients and whatnot.
Yeah.
So, show me a picture of a physique that you think is good. I'm interested.
God,
gotta be someone.
Putting me in the fucking spot.
You're the one who wanted to talk about physiques.
I know. Help me here. Who's
help you? I have no idea. You tell me. I don't know what your standards are.
I don't know, dude. I don't know.
There's got to be someone who's in the realm of what you find to be.
I think, dude, 6'4", 220 with visible muscle, like muscle that no one would be like, do you even lift? If that's even a possibility, because like I said, I've been 6'4", 220, and if it's possible to like look like I lift.
So you're talking about some guys in like the NFL, maybe?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Or
because I feel like those guys resemble probably the target body fat you would feel to be more representative of what you'd walk around at, as opposed to the fitness industry, like 9% perpetually sort of thing.
Yes.
And these guys are like heavily muscled looking, but not like fucking streamlined fitness model-esque kind of thing.
I think,
and they're taller.
But again, when I say that's like an aesthetic that I aspire to be, I guess I just don't aspire to be like that. I don't know. It's confusing because, again, you basically what we're both saying is that the comment section who's saying, "Do you even lift, bro?" They're so fucking swayed. Mm-hmm. Their mind, like, everything's so twisted and it's so dark.
When you
and
see somebody
anonymous.
on a video, it's not really representative of what even they look like in real life.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Like usually, I imagine when people walk up to you, you even said people
yes.
are like,
they're like,
shit.
"Holy shit, you're way bigger." And like, I will say this, in recent videos, people are like starting to kind of say that I'm a lot bigger, but I've never been this size before.
But now you're worried to cut because they put that in your head.
I know. I'm just gonna say fuck it, dude. Like when I cut and I don't look big, I'm just gonna be like, look, this is the deal. I want to be happier. Genuinely, I just want to be happier.
I think what you bring to the community at large is beyond if you're cutting or bulking or the physique you're posting on Instagram. Right. So I wouldn't worry too much about that perception at all.
All right, on that, we're going to finish it. Thank you, dude. Seriously, thank you for doing this. I know it's been a busy week, and it's
thank you.
Your brain's been fried, and
for everything and helping create that awesome content, as well as shout out to Alex, and thanks for hosting me. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it and found some value or humor or whatever from it, entertainment. And
see you guys.
The king of outros.